Chapter 18. Names of the Dead. Alan phoned at 5 and verified the availability of the amount he required, fighting to control the sickness she felt at his greed. She copied the address carefully on the back of a card she'd taken from Picard's desk in the Roberts Gallery. Andrea returned from work 10 minutes later, and Marley was glad that her friend hadn't been there for Alan's call. She watched Andrea prop up the kitchen window with a frayed, blue-backed copy of the second volume of the Shorter Oxford English Dictionary, 6th edition. Andrea had wedged a kind of plywood shelf there, on the stone ledge, wide enough to support the little hibachi she kept beneath the sink. Now she was arranging the black squares of charcoal neatly on the grate. "I had a talk about your employer today," she said, placing the hibachi on the plywood and igniting the greenish fire starter paste with the spark gun from the stove. "Our academic was in from Nice. He's baffled as to why I'd choose Josef Virek as my focus of interest, but he's also a horny old goat, so he was more than glad to talk." Marley stood beside her, watching the nearly invisible flames lick around the coals. "He kept dragging the Tessier ash pools into it." Andrea continued. "And Hughes. Hughes was mid to late 20th century, an American. He's in the book as well, as a sort of proto-Virek. I hadn't known that Tessier ash pool had started to disintegrate." She went back to the counter and unwrapped 6 large tiger prawns. "They're Franco-Australian? I remember a documentary, I think. They own one of the big spas?" "Freeside. It's been sold now, my professor tells me. It seems that one of old Ashpool's daughters somehow managed to gain personal control of the entire business entity, became increasingly eccentric, and the clan's interests went to hell. This over the past 7 years." "I don't see what it has to do with Virek," Marley said, watching Andrea skewer each prawn on a long needle of bamboo. "Your guess is as good as mine. My professor maintains that both Virek and the Tessier ash pools are fascinating anachronisms, and that things can be learned about corporate evolution by watching them. He's convinced enough of our senior editors at any rate. But what did he say about Virek?" "That Virek's madness would take a different form." "Madness?" Actually, he avoided calling it that. But Hughes was mad as birds, apparently, and old Ashpool as well, and his daughter totally bizarre. He said that Virek would be forced by evolutionary pressures to make some sort of jump. Jump was his word. Evolutionary pressures. "Yes," Andrea said, carrying the skewered prawns to the hibachi. "He talks about corporations as though they were animals of some kind." After dinner, they went out walking. Marley found herself straining at times to sense the imagined mechanism of Virek's surveillance, but Andrea filled the evening with her usual warmth and common sense, and Marley was grateful to walk through a city where things were simply themselves. In Virek's world, what could be simple? She remembered the brass knob in the Galerie du Perret, how it had squirmed so indescribably in her fingers as it drew her into Virek's model of the Parque Güell. Was he always there, she wondered, in Gaudi's park, in an afternoon that never ended? Fenyor is wealthy. Fenyor enjoys any number of means of manifestation. She shivered in the warm evening air, moved closer to Andrea. The sinister thing about a SimStim construct, really, was that it carried the suggestion that any environment might be unreal.
Low gravity warning.
That the windows of the shop fronts she passed now with Andrea might be figments. Mirrors, someone had once said, were in some way essentially unwholesome. Constructs were more so, she decided. Andrea paused at a kiosk to buy her English cigarettes and the new L, Marley waited on the pavement, the pedestrian traffic parting automatically for her, faces sliding past, students and businessmen and tourists. Some of them, she assumed, were part of Viric's machine, wired into Paco. Paco, with his brown eyes, his easy way, his seriousness, muscles moving beneath his broadcloth shirt. Paco, who had worked for Señor all his life. What's wrong? You look as though you've just swallowed something. Andrea stripping the cellophane from her 20 silk cut. No, Marley said and shivered. But it occurs to me that I very nearly did. And walking home, in spite of Andrea's conversation, her warmth, the shop windows had become boxes, each one constructions, like the works of Joseph Cornell or the mysterious boxmaker Viric sought. The books and furs and Italian cottons arranged to suggest geometries of nameless longing. And waking once again, face smudged into Andrea's couch, the red quilt humped around her shoulders, smelling coffee, while Andrea hummed some Tokyo pop song to herself in the next room, dressing in a gray morning of Paris rain. No, she told Paco. I'll go myself. I prefer it.
Cargo
That is a
hold
great
at
deal of
maximum
money.
capacity.
He looked down at the Italian bag on the cafe table between them. It's dangerous, you understand? There's no one to know I'm carrying it, is there? Only Alan. Alan and your friends. And I didn't say I'd go alone, only that I don't feel like company. Is something wrong? The serious deep lines at the corners of his mouth. You are upset. I only mean that I wish to be by myself. You and the others, whoever they are welcome to follow and observe. If you should lose me, which I think unlikely, I'm sure you have the address. That is true, he said. But for you to carry several million new yen alone through Paris, he shrugged. And if I were to lose it, would Señor register the loss? Or would there be another bag? Another 4 million? She reached for the shoulder strap and stood. There would be another bag, certainly. Although it requires some effort on our part to assemble that amount of cash. And no, Señor would not register its loss in the sense you mean. But I would be disciplined, even for the pointless loss of a lesser sum. The very rich have the common characteristic of taking care with their money, you would find. Nonetheless, I go by myself. Not
Cargo
alone,
scoop deployed.
but
Low
leave me
gravity
with my
warning.
thoughts. Your intuition. Yes. If they followed, and she was sure they did, they were invisible as ever. For that matter, it seemed most likely that they would leave Alan unobserved. Certainly the address he had given her that morning would already be a focus of their attention, whether he were there or not. She felt a new strength today. She had stood up to Paco. It had had something to do with her abrupt suspicion the night before that Paco might be there in part for her, with his humor and his manliness and his endearing ignorance of art. She remembered Viric saying that they knew more about her life than she herself did. What easier way, then, for them to pencil in those last few blanks in the grid that was Marley Khrushcheva? Paco Esteves, a perfect stranger. Too perfect. She smiled at herself in a wall of blue mirror as the escalator carried her down into the metro, pleased with the cut of her dark hair and the stylishly austere titanium frames of the black Porsche glasses she'd bought that morning. Good lips, she thought. Really not bad lips at all. And a thin boy in a white shirt and dark leather jacket smiled at her from the up escalator, a huge black portfolio case beneath his arm. I'm in Paris, she thought. For the first time in a very long time, that alone seemed reason to smile. And today, I will give my disgusting fool of a former lover 4 million new yen, and he will give me something in return. A name, or an address, perhaps a phone number. She bought a first-class ticket. The car would be less crowded, and she could pass the time guessing which of her fellow passengers belonged to Viereck. The address Alan had given her in a grim northern suburb was one of 20 concrete towers rising from a plain of the same material. Speculative real estate from the middle of the previous century. The rain was falling steadily now, but she felt as though she was somehow in collusion with it. It lent the day something conspiratorial, and beaded on the chic rubber bag stuffed with Alan's fortune. How queer to stroll through this hideous landscape with millions beneath her arm, on her way to reward her utterly faithless former lover with these bales of new yen. There was no answer when she buzzed the apartment's numbered speaker button. Beyond smudged sheet glass, a darkened foyer, entirely bare. The sort of place where you turned the lights on as you entered. They turned themselves off again, automatically, invariably before your elevator had arrived, leaving you to wait there in the smell of disinfectant and tired air. She buzzed again. Alan? Nothing. She tried the door. It wasn't locked. There was no one in the foyer. The dead eye of a derelict video camera regarded her through a film of dust. The afternoon's watery light seeped in from the concrete plane behind her. Boot heels clicking on brown tile. She crossed to the bank of elevators and pressed button 22. There was a hollow thump, a metallic groan, and one of the elevators began to descend. The plastic indicators above the doors remained unlit. The car arrived with a sigh and a high-pitched fading whine. Cher Alan, you have come down in the world. This place is the shits, truly. As the door slid open on the darkness of the car, she fumbled beneath the Italian bag for the flap of her Brussels purse. She found the flat little green tin flashlight she'd carried since her first walk in Paris, with the lion-headed Pile Wonder trademark embossed on its front, and pulled it out. In the elevators of Paris, you could step into many things. The arms of a mugger, a steaming pile of fresh dog shit. And the weak beam picking out the silver cables, oiled and shining, swaying gently in the vacant shaft, the toe of her right boot already centimeters past the scuffed steel edge of the tile she stood on. Her hand automatically jerking the beam down in terror, down to the dusty littered roof of the car, 2 levels below. She took in an extraordinary amount of detail in the seconds her flash wavered on the elevator. She thought of a tiny submarine diving the cliffs of some deep seamount, the frail beam wavering on a patch of silt undisturbed for centuries. The soft bed of ancient furry soot, a dried gray thing that was a used condom, the bright reflected eyes of crumpled bits of tinfoil, the frail gray barrel and white plunger of a diabetic syringe. She held the edge of the door so tightly that her knuckle joints ached. Very slowly, she shifted her weight backward, away from the pit. Another step, and she clicked off her light. Damn you. she said. Oh, Jesus. She found the door to the stairwell. Clicking the little flash back on, she began to climb. 8 floors up. The numbness began to fade, and she was shaking, tears ruining her makeup. Rapping on the door again. It was pressboard, laminated with a ghastly imitation of rosewood, the lithographed grain just visible in the light from the long corridor's single strip of biofluorescence. Damn you. Alan? Alan! The myopic fisheye of the door's little spyglass looking through her, blank and vacant. The corridor held a horrible smell. Embalmed cooking odors trapped in synthetic carpeting. Trying the door, knob turning, the cheap brass greasy and cold, and the bag of money suddenly heavy, the strap cutting into her shoulder. The door opening easily. A short stretch of orange carpet flecked with irregular rectangles of salmon pink. Decades of dirt ground into it, in a clearly defined track by thousands of tenants and their visitors. Alan, the smell of black French cigarettes, almost comforting. And finding him there in that same watery light, silver light, the other tower blocks featureless, beyond a rectangle of window, against pale rainy sky, where he lay curled like a child on the hideous orange carpet, his spine, question mark beneath the taut back of his bottle green velour jacket, his left hand spread above his ear, white fingers, faintest bluish tint at the base of his nails. Kneeling, she touched his neck. Knew. Beyond the window, all the rain sliding down forever. Cradling his head, legs open, holding him, rocking, swaying, the dumb, sad animal keening filling the bare rectangle of the room. And after a time, becoming aware of the sharp thing under her palm, the neat stainless end of a length of very fine, very rigid wire that protruded from his ear and between the spread, cool fingers. Ugly. Ugly. That was no way to die. It got her up. Anger. Her hands like claws. To survey the silent room where he had died. There was no sense of him there. Nothing, only his ragged attaché. Opening that, she found 2 spiral notebooks, their pages new and clean, an unread but very fashionable novel, a box of wooden matches, and a half-empty blue packet of Gauloise. The leather-bound agenda from Brown's was gone. She patted his jacket, slid fingers through his pockets, but it was gone. No, she thought, you wouldn't have written it there, would you? But you could never remember a number or an address, could you? She looked around the room again, a weird calm overtaking her. You had to write things down, but you were secretive. And you didn't trust my little book from Brown's, no. You'd meet a girl in some cafe and write her number in a matchbook or on the back of some scrap and forget it, so that I found it weeks later, straightening up your things.
At maximum capacity.
She went into the tiny bedroom. There was a bright red folding chair and a slab of cheap yellow foam that served as a bed. The foam was marked with the brown butterfly of menstrual blood. She lifted it, but there was nothing there. You'd have been scared, she said, her voice shaking with a fury she didn't try to understand. Her hands cold, colder than Alan's as she ran them down the red wallpaper, striped with gold, seeking some loose seam, a hiding place. You poor stupid shit. Poor stupid dead shit. Nothing. back into the living room and amazed, somehow, that he hadn't moved, expecting him to jump up, hello, waving a few centimeters of tripwire. She removed his shoes. They needed resoling, new heels.
Cargo
She looked
scoop
inside, felt the
retracted.
lining. Nothing. Don't do this to me. And back into the bedroom, the narrow closet, brushing aside a clatter of cheap white plastic hangers, a limp shroud of dry cleaner's plastic. Dragging the stained bed slab over and standing on it, her heels sinking to the foam to slide her hands the length of a pressboard shelf and find, in the far corner, a hard little fold of paper, rectangular and blue. Opening it, noticing how the nails she'd done so carefully were chipped, and finding the number
London
he'd written
gear
there in
retracted.
green felt pen. It was an empty Gauloise packet. There was a knock at the door. And then Paco's voice. "Marley? Hello? What has happened?"
Frameshift
She thrust the
drive
number into the
charging.
waistband of her jeans and turned to meet his calm, serious
4,
eyes.
3, 2,
"It's
1.
on,"
Engage.
she said. "He's dead." Chapter 19. Hypermart. He saw Lucas for the last time in front of a big old department store on Madison Avenue. That was how he remembered him after that. A big black man in a sharp black suit, about to step into his long black car, one black, softly polished shoe already on the lush carpet of Ahmed's interior, the other still on the crumbling concrete of the curb. Jackie stood beside Bobby, her face shadowed by the wide brim of her gold-hung fedora. An orange silk headscarf knotted at the back of her neck. "You take care of our young friend now," Lucas said, pointing the knob of his cane at her. "He's not without his enemies, our Count." "Who is?" Jackie asked. "I'll take care of myself," Bobby said, resenting the idea of Jackie being seen as more capable, yet at the same time knowing that she almost certainly was. "You do that," Lucas said, the knob swinging, lined up now with Bobby's eyes. "Sprawl Town's a twisty place, my man. Things are seldom what they seem." To illustrate his point, he did something to the cane that caused the long brass splines below the ball to open smoothly for an instant. Silently, extended like the ribs of an umbrella, each one glinting sharp as a razor, pointed like needles. Then they were gone, and Ahmed's wide door swung shut with an armor-plated thud. Jackie laughed. "Shit! Lucas still carrying that killing stick. Big-time lawyer now, but the street leaves a mark on you. Guess it's a good thing." "Lawyer?" She looked at him. "You never mind, honey. You just come with me, do like I tell you, you be okay." Ahmed merged with the sparse traffic. A pedicab jockey blaring pointlessly at the receding brass bumper with a handheld air horn. Then one manicured, gold-ringed hand on his shoulder. She led him across the sidewalk, past a sleeping huddle of rag-bundled transients, and into the slowly waking world of Hypermart. 14 floors, Jackie said, and Bobby whistled. "All like this?" She nodded, spooning brown crystals of rock sugar into the tan foam atop her coffee glass. They sat on scrolly cast-iron stools at a marble counter in a little booth, where a girl Bobby's age, her hair dyed and lacquered into a kind of dorsal fin, worked the knobs and levers of a big old machine with brass tanks and domes and burners and eagles with spread chrome wings. The countertop had been something else originally. Bobby saw where one end was bashed off in a long, crooked jag to allow it to fit between two green-painted steel pillars. You like it, huh?
Your docking request has been
She
denied,
sprinkled the
Commander.
foam with powdered cinnamon from a heavy old glass shaker. About as far from Barrytown as you've been some ways. Bobby nodded, his eyes confused by the thousand colors and textures of the things in the stalls themselves. There seemed to be no regularity to anything, no hint of any central planning agency. Crooked corridors twisted off from the area in front of the espresso booth. There seemed to be no central source of lighting either. Red and blue neon glowed beyond the white hiss of a Primus lantern, and one stall, just being opened by a bearded man with leather pants, seemed to be lit with candles, the soft light reflecting off hundreds of polished brass buckles hung against the reds and blacks of old rugs. There was a morning rattle to the place, a coughing and a clearing of throats. A blue Toshiba custodial unit whirred out of a corridor, dragging a battered plastic cart stacked with green plastic bales of garbage. Someone had glued a big plastic doll head to the Toshiba's upper body segment, above the clustered camera eyes and sensors. A grinning, blue-eyed thing once intended to approximate the features of a leading STEM star without violating SenseNet copyrights. The pink head, its platinum hair bound up in a length of pale blue plastic pearls, bobbed absurdly as the robot rolled past. Bobby laughed. "This place is okay," he said, and gestured to the girl to refill his cup. "Wait a sec, asshole," the counter girl said, amiably enough. She was measuring ground coffee into a dented steel hopper on one end of an antique balance. "You get any sleep last night,
Frameshift
Jackie?
drive
After the
charging.
show?" "Sure," Jackie said
4,
and sipped at her coffee.
3, 2,
I danced
1.
there second set.
Engage.
Then I slept at Jammer's. Hit the couch, you know. Wish I'd got some. Every time Henry sees you dance, he won't let me alone." She laughed and refilled Bobby's cup from a black plastic thermos. "Well," Bobby said, when the girl was busy again with the espresso machine. "What next?" "Busy man, huh?" Jackie regarded him coolly from beneath the gold-pinned hat brim. "Got places you need to go, people to see?" "Well, no, shit, I just mean, well, is this it?" "Is what it?" "This place. We're staying here?" "Top floor.
Welcome, Commander.
Friend of mine named Jammer runs a club up there.
Docking requests.
Very unlikely anyone could find you there.
You are welcome.
And even if they do, it's a hard place to sneak up on. 14 floors are mostly stalls. And a whole lot of these people sell stuff they don't have out in plain view, right? So they're all very sensitive to strangers turning up,
Landing gear
anyone
deployed.
asking questions. And most of them are friends of ours, one way or another. Anyway, you'll like it here. Good place for you. Lots to learn, if you remember to keep your mouth shut. How am I gonna learn if I don't ask questions? Well, I mean keep your ears open, man,
Engines shutting down.
and be
Hello,
polite.
Commander. How may we
Some
assist
tough
you?
people in here. But you mind your biz, they'll mind theirs. Beauvoir's probably coming by here late this afternoon. Lucas has gone out to the projects to tell him whatever you learned from the Finn. What did you learn from the Finn, hon? That he's got these 3 dead guys stretched out on his floor. Says they're ninjas. Bobby looked at her. He's pretty weird. Dead guys aren't part of his usual line of goods. But yeah, he's weird, all right. Why don't you tell me about it? Calmly and in low, measured tones. Think you can do that? Bobby told her what he could remember of his visit to the Finn. Several times she stopped him, asked questions he usually wasn't able to answer. She nodded when he first mentioned Wigan Ludgate. Yeah, she said. Jamma talks about him when he gets going on the old days. Have to ask him.
Landing
At the
gear
end of his
retracted.
recitation, she was lounging back against one of the green pillars, the hat very low over her dark eyes. Well? He asked. Interesting, she said. But that was all she'd say. I want some new clothes, Bobby said when they'd climbed the immobile escalator to the second floor. You got any money? She asked.
Frameshift drive charging.
Shit, he said, his hands in the pockets of the baggy pleated jeans.
2, 1.
I
Engage.
don't have any fucking money, but I want some clothes. You and Lucas and Beauvoir are keeping my ass on ice for something, aren't you?
Warning. Frameshift
Well, I'm
drive
tired of this
operating
god-awful
beyond
shirt Rhea
safety
palmed
limits.
off on me. And these pants? Always feel like they're about to fall off my ass. And I'm here because Two-A-Day, who's a low-life fuck, wanted to risk my butt so Lucas and Beauvoir could test their fucking software. So you can fucking well buy me some clothes, okay?
Warning. Frameshift
Okay.
drive operating beyond safety
She said
limits.
after a pause. I tell you what. She pointed to where a Chinese girl in faded denim was furling the sheets of plastic that had fenced a dozen steel pipe garment racks hung with clothing. You see Lynn there? She's a friend of mine. You pick out what you want. I'll straighten it out between Lucas and her. Half an hour later, he emerged from a blanket-draped fitting room and put on a pair of Indo-Javanese mirrored aviator glasses. He grinned at Jackie. Real sharp, he said. Oh, yeah. She did a thing with her hand, a fanning movement as though something nearby were too hot to touch. You didn't like that shirt Rhea loaned you? He looked down at the black t-shirt he'd chosen, at the square hollow decal of cyberspace on his chest. It was done so you seemed to be punching fast forward through the matrix, grid lines blurring at the edges of the decal. Yeah, it was too tacky. Right, Jackie said, taking in the tight black jeans, the heavy leather boots with spacesuit-style accordion folds at the ankles, the black leather garrison belt trimmed with twin lines of pyramidal chrome studs. Well, I guess you look more like the Count. Come on, Count. I got a couch for you to sleep on, up in Jamma's place. He leered at her, thumbs hooked in the front pockets of the black Levi's. Alone, she added. No fear. Chapter 20. Orly Flight. Paco slung the Citroën Dornier down the Champs, along the north bank of the Seine, then up through Les Halles. Marley sank back into the astonishingly soft leather seat, more beautifully stitched than her Brussels jacket, and willed her mind to blankness, lack of affect.
Orbital flight
eyes.
engaged.
She told herself. Only eyes. Your body, a weight pressed evenly back by the speed of this obscenely expensive car. Humming past the Square des Innocents, where whores dickered with the drivers of cargo hoppers in bleu de travail, Paco steered effortlessly through the narrow streets. Why did you say, "Don't do this to me"? He took his hand from the steering console and tapped his ear bead into position. Why were you listening? Because that is my job. I sent a woman up into the tower opposite his, to the 22nd floor, with a parabolic microphone. The phone in the apartment was dead, otherwise we could have used that. She went up, broke into a vacant unit on the west face of the tower, and aimed her microphone in time to hear you say, "Don't do this to me." And you were alone? Yes. He was dead? Yes. Why did you say it then? I don't know. Who did you feel was doing something to you? I don't know. Perhaps Alan. Doing what? Being dead? Complicating matters? You tell me. You are a difficult woman. Let me out. I will take you to your friend's apartment. Stop the car. I will take you to... I'll walk! The low silver car slid up to the curb. I will call you in there. Good night. You're certain you wouldn't prefer one of the spas? Asked Mr. Paleologos, thin and elegant as a mantis in his white hopsack jacket. His hair was white as well, brushed back from his forehead with extreme
Frameshift
care.
drive charging.
It would be less expensive and a great deal more fun. You're a very pretty girl. Pardon? Jerking her attention
4,
back from the street
3,
beyond the rain-streaked
2,
window.
1. Engage.
A what? His French was clumsy, enthusiastic, strangely inflected. A very pretty girl. He smiled primly. You wouldn't prefer a holiday in a med cluster? People your own age? Are you Jewish? I beg your pardon. Jewish, are you? No. Too bad, he said. You have the
Frameshift
cheekbones of a
drive
certain sort
charging.
of elegant young Jewess. I have a lovely discount on 15 days to Jerusalem Prime. Marvelous environment for the price. Includes suit rental, 3 meals per diem, and direct shuttle from the JAL Taurus. Suit rental? They haven't entirely established atmosphere in Jerusalem Prime. Mr. Paleologos said, shuffling a stack of pink flims from one side of the desk to the other. His office was a tiny cubicle wall with hologram views of Poros
4,
and Macau.
3, 2,
She chose his agency for its evident obscurity and because it had possible to slip in without leaving the little commercial complex in the metro station nearest Andrea's. No, she said. I'm not interested in spas. I want to go here. She had writing on the wrinkled blue wrapper from a pack of Gaulois. Well, he said, it's possible, of course, but I have no listing of accommodations. Will you be visiting friends? A business trip, she said impatiently. I must leave immediately. Very well, Mr. Paleologos said, taking a cheap-looking lap terminal from a shelf behind his desk. Can you give me your credit code, please? She reached into her black leather bag and took out the thick bundle of new yen she'd removed from Paco's bag while he'd been busy examining the apartment where Alan had died. The money was fastened with a red band of translucent elastic. I wish to pay cash. Oh, dear. Mr. Paleologos said, extending a pink fingertip to touch the top bill, as though he expected the lot of it to vanish. I see. Well, you understand, I wouldn't ordinarily do business this way. But I suppose something can be arranged. Quickly, she said. Very quickly. He looked at her. I understand. Can you tell me, please? His fingers began to move over the keys of the lap terminal. The name under which you wish to travel. Chapter 21. Highway time. Turner woke to the silent house. The sound of birds in the apple trees in the overgrown orchard. He'd slept on the broken couch Rudy kept in the kitchen. He drew water for coffee, the plastic pipes from the roof tank chugging as he filled the pot, put the pot on the propane burner, and walked out to the porch. Rudy's 8 vehicles were filmed with dew, arranged in a neat row on the gravel. One of the augmented hounds trotted through the open gate as Turner came down the steps, its black hood clicking softly in the morning quiet. It paused, drooling, swayed its distorted head from side to side, then scrambled across the gravel and out of sight, around the corner of the porch. Turner paused by the hood of a dull brown
Landing
Suzuki
gear
Jeep,
deployed.
a hydrogen cell conversion. Rudy would have done the work himself. Four-wheel drive, big tires with off-road lugs crusted in pale dry river mud. Small, slow, reliable, not much use on the road. He passed two rust-flecked Honda sedans, identical, same year and model. Rudy would be ripping one for parts from the other. Neither would be running. He grinned absently at the immaculate brown and tan paintwork on the 1949 Chevrolet van, remembering the rusted shell Rudy had hauled home from Arkansas on a rented flatbed. The thing still ran on gasoline, the inner surfaces of its engine likely as spotless as the hand-rubbed chocolate lacquer of its fenders. There was half of a Dornier ground effect plane under gray plastic tarps, and then a wasp-like black Suzuki racing bike on a homemade trailer. He wondered how long it had been since Rudy had done any serious racing. There was a snowmobile under another tarp, an old one, next to the bike trailer. And then the stained gray hovercraft, surplus from the war. A squat wedge of armored steel that smelled of the kerosene its turbine burned, its mesh-reinforced apron bag slack on the gravel. Its windows were narrow slits of thick, high-impact plastic. There were Ohio plates bolted to the thing's ram-like bumpers. They were current. "I can see what you're thinking," Sally said, and he turned to see her at the porch rail with the pot of steaming coffee in her hand. "Rudy says if it can't get over something, it can anyway get through it." "Is it
Low
fast?"
gravity warning.
Touching the hover's armored flank. "Sure, but
Cargo
you'll need a new
scoop
spine
deployed.
after about an hour." "How about the law?" "Can't much say they like the way it looks, but it's certified street legal. No law against armor that I know of." "Angie's feeling better," Sally said as he followed her in through the kitchen door. "Aren't you, honey?" Mitchell's daughter looked up from the kitchen table. Her bruising, like Turner's, had faded to a pair of fat commas, like painted blue-black tears. "My friend here's a doctor," Turner said. "He checked you out when you were under. He says you're doing okay." "Your brother. He's not a doctor." "Sorry, Turner," Sally said at the stove. "I'm pretty much straightforward." "Well, he's not a doctor," he said, "but he's smart. We were worried that Moss might have done something to you. Fixed it so you'd get sick if you left Arizona." "Like a Cortex bomb?" She spooned cold cereal from a cracked bowl with apple blossoms around the rim, part of a set that Turner remembered. "Lord," Sally said. "What have you gotten yourself into, Turner?" "Good question." He took a seat at the table. Angie chewed her cereal, staring at him. "Angie," he said, "when Rudy scanned you, he found something in your head." She stopped chewing. He didn't know what it was. Something someone put there, maybe when you were a lot younger. "Do you know what I mean?" She nodded. "Do you know what it is?" She swallowed. "No." "But you know who put it there?" "Yes." "Your father?" "Yes." "Do you know why?" "Because I was sick." "How were you sick?" "I wasn't smart enough." He was ready by noon, the hovercraft fueled and waiting by the chain-link gates. Rudy had given him a rectangular black Ziploc stuffed with new yen, some of the bills worn almost translucent with use. "I tried that tape through a French lexicon," Rudy said, while one of the hounds rubbed its dusty ribs against its legs. "Doesn't work. I think it's some kind of Creole. Maybe African. You want a copy?" "No," Turner said. "You hang on to it." "Thanks," Rudy said, "but no thanks. I don't plan on admitting you were ever here if anybody asks. Sally and I were heading into Memphis this afternoon. Stay with a couple of friends. Dogs will watch the house."
Chassis integrity
He scratched the animal
compromised.
behind its plastic hood. "Right, boy?" The dog whined and twitched. "I had to train him off coon hunting when I put their infrareds in," he said. "There wouldn't have been any coons left in the county." Sally and the girl came down the porch steps, Sally carrying a broken-down canvas carry-all she'd filled with sandwiches and a thermos of coffee. Turner remembered her in the bed upstairs and smiled. She smiled back. She looked older today, tired. Angie had discarded the blood-stained Moss Neotech t-shirt in favor of a shapeless black sweatshirt Sally had found for her. It made her look even younger than she was. Sally had also managed to incorporate the remaining bruises into a baroque job of eye makeup that clashed
Cargo
weirdly with her
vault
kid's
at
face and
maximum
baggy shirt.
capacity.
Rudy handed Turner the key to the hovercraft. "I had my old Cray cook me a précis of recent corporate news this morning. One thing you should probably know is that Moss Biolabs has announced the accidental death of Dr. Christopher Mitchell." Impressive. How vague those people can be. "And you just keep the harness on real tight," Sally was saying, "or your ass will be black and blue before you hit that Statesboro bypass." Rudy glanced at the girl, then back at Turner. Turner could see the broken veins at the base of his brother's nose. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a pronounced tick in his left eyelid. "Well, I guess that's it. Funny, but I come to figure I wouldn't see you again. Kind of funny to see you back here." "Well," Turner said, "you've both done more than I'd any right to expect." Sally glanced away. "So, thanks. I guess we'd better go." He climbed up into the cab of the hover, wanting to be gone. Sally squeezed the girl's wrist, gave her the carry-all, and stood beside her while she climbed up the two hinged footrests. Turner settled into the driver's seat. "She kept asking for you," Rudy said. "After a while it got so bad the endorphin analogs couldn't really cut the pain, and every 2 hours or so she'd asked where you were, when you were coming." "I sent you money," Turner said. "Enough to take her to Chiba. The clinics there could have tried something new." Rudy snorted. "Chiba? Jesus. She was an old woman.
Cargo scoop.
What the hell good would it
retracted.
have done, keeping her alive in Chiba for a few more months? What she mainly wanted was to see you. It didn't work out that way," Turner said as the girl got into the seat beside his and placed the bag on the floor between her feet. "Be seeing you, Rudy." He nodded. "Sally." "So long," Sally said, her arm around Rudy.
Low gravity warning.
"Who were you talking about?" Angie asked as the hatch came down. Turner put the key in the ignition and fired up the turbine, simultaneously
Cargo
inflating the
scoop
apron
deployed.
bag. Through the narrow window at his side, he saw Rudy and Sally back quickly away from the hover, the hound cowering and snapping at the noise of the turbine. The pedals and hand controls were oversized, designed to permit ease of operation for a driver wearing a radiation suit. Turner eased them out through the gates and swung around on a wide patch of gravel drive. Angie was buckling her harness. "My mother," he said. He revved the turbine and they jolted forward. "I never knew my mother," she said. and Turner remembered that her father was dead, and that she didn't know it yet. He hit the throttle, and they shot off down the gravel drive, barely missing one of Rudy's hounds. Sally had been right about the thing's ride. There was constant vibration from the turbine. At 90 kilometers per hour on the skewed asphalt of the old state highway, it shook their teeth. The armored apron bag rode the broken surfaces heavily. The skim effect of a civilian sport model would only be possible on a perfectly smooth, flat surface. Turner found himself liking it, though. You pointed, eased back the throttle, and you went. Someone had hung a pair of pink, sun-faded foam dice above the forward vision slit, and the whine of the turbine was a solid thing behind him. The girl seemed to relax, taking in the roadside scenery with an absent, almost contented expression. And Turner was grateful that he wasn't required to make conversation. "You're hot," he thought, glancing sidelong at her. "You're probably the single most hotly pursued little item on the face of the planet today. And here I am, hauling you off to the sprawl in Rudy's kid-stuff war wagon. No fucking idea what I'm going to do with you now. Or who it was zapped them all." Run it through, he told himself. As they swung down into the valley, run it through again. Eventually something will click. Mitchell had contacted Hosaka, said he was coming over. Hosaka hired Conroy and assembled a medical crew to check Mitchell for kinks. Conroy had put the teams together, working with Turner's agent. Turner's agent was a voice in Geneva, a telephone number. Hosaka had sent Allison in to vet him in Mexico. Then Conroy had pulled him out. Weber, just before the shit hit the fan, had said that she was Conroy's plant at the site. Someone had jumped them as the girl was coming in, flares and automatic weapons. That felt like Moss to him. It was the sort of move he'd expect. The sort of thing his hired muscle was there to deal with.
At maximum capacity.
Then, the white sky. He thought about what Rudy had said about a railgun. Who? And the mess in the girl's head. The things Rudy had turned up on his tomograph and his NMR imager. She said her father had never planned on coming out himself. "No company," she said to the window. "How's that?" "You don't have a company, do you? I mean, you work for whoever hires you." "That's right." "Don't you get scared?" "Sure, but not because of that." "We've always had the company. My father said I'd be all right, that I was just going to another company." "You'll be fine." He was right. "I just have to find out what's going on. Then I'll get you where you need to go." "To Japan?" "Wherever." "Have you been there?" "Sure."
Cargo
"Would I
scoop
like it?"
retracted.
"Why not?" Then she lapsed into silence again, and Turner concentrated on the road. "It makes me dream," she said, as he leaned forward to turn on the headlights, her voice barely audible above the turbine. "What does?" He pretended to be lost in his driving, careful not to glance her way. "The thing in my head.
Low gravity warning.
Usually it's
Handbrake
only
is
when I'm
on.
asleep." "Yeah?" Remembering the whites of her eyes in Rudy's bedroom,
Cargo
the shuddering,
scoop deployed.
the rush of words in a language he didn't know. "Sometimes when I'm awake, it's like I'm jacked into a deck, only I'm free of the grid, flying, and I'm not alone there. The other night I dreamed about a boy, And he'd reached out, picked up something, and it was hurting him. And he couldn't see that he was free, that he only needed to let go. So I told him. And for just a second, I could see where he was. And that wasn't like a dream at all, just this ugly little room with a stained carpet. And I could tell he needed a shower and feel how the insides of his shoes were sticky because he wasn't wearing socks. That's not like the dreams.
No?
No. The dreams are all big, big things, and I'm big too, moving with the others. Turner let his breath out as the hover whined up the concrete ramp to the interstate, suddenly aware that he'd been holding it.
What others?
The bright ones.
Another silence.
Not people.
You spend much time in cyberspace, Angie? I mean, jacked in with a deck?
No, just school stuff. My father said it wasn't good for me.
He say anything about those dreams?
Only that they were getting realer. But I never told him about the others.
You want to tell me? Maybe it'll help me understand, figure out what we need to do.
Some of them tell me things. Stories. Once, there was nothing there. Nothing moving on its own, just data and people shuffling it around. Then something happened and it knew itself. There's a whole other story about that. A girl with mirrors over her eyes and a man who was scared to care about anything. Something the man did helped the whole thing know itself. And after that, it sort of split off into different parts of itself. And I think the parts are the others. The bright ones. But it's hard to tell because they don't tell it with words exactly.
Turner felt the skin on his neck prickle. Something coming back to him up out of the drowned undertow of Mitchell's dossier. Hot, burning shame in a hallway. Dirty cream paint peeling. Cambridge, the graduate dorms. Where were you born, Angie?
England. Then my father got into Mass. We moved to Geneva.
Somewhere in Virginia, he eased the hovercraft over onto the gravel shoulder and out into an overgrown pasture. Dust from the dry summer swirling out behind them as he swung them left and into a stand of pine. The turbine died as they settled into the apron bag. "You might as well eat now," he said, reaching back for Sally's canvas carryall. Angie undid her harness and unzipped the black sweatshirt. Under it she wore something tight and white, a child's smooth tanned flesh, showing the scoop neck above young breasts. She took the bag from him and began unwrapping the sandwiches Sally had made for him.
"What's wrong with your brother?"
she asked, handing him half a sandwich. "How do you mean?"
"Well, there's something. He drinks all the time," Sally said. "Is he unhappy?"
"I don't know," Turner said, hunching and twisting the aches out of his neck and shoulders. "I mean, he must be, but I don't know exactly why. People get stuck sometimes."
"You mean when they don't have companies to take care of them?"
She bit into her sandwich. He looked at her. "Are you putting me on?" She nodded, her mouth full, swallowed.
"A little bit. I know that a lot of people don't work for Moss. Never have and never will. You're one. Your brother's another. But it was a real question. I kind of liked Rudy, you know? But he just seemed so
screwed up." He finished for her, still holding a sandwich, Stuck. What it is, I think there's a jump some people have to make sometimes, and if they don't do it, then they're stuck good. And Rudy never did it. Like my father wanting to get me out of Moss. Is that a jump? No. Some jumps you have to decide on for yourself. Just figure there's something better waiting for you somewhere. He paused, feeling suddenly ridiculous, and bit into the sandwich. Is that what you thought? He nodded, wondering if it were true. So you left and Rudy stayed.
Cargo
He was
hold
smart.
at maximum
Still
capacity.
is. And he'd rolled up a bunch of degrees, did it all on the line. Got a doctorate in biotechnology from Tulane when he was 20, a bunch of other stuff. Never sent out any resumes, nothing. We'd have recruiters turn up from all over and he'd bullshit them, pick fights. I think he thought he could make something on his own. Like those hoods on the dogs. I think he's got a couple of original patents there, but anyway, he stayed there. Got into dealing and doing hardware for people, and he was hot stuff in the county. And our mother got sick. She was sick for a long time, and I was away. Where were you? She opened the thermos, and the smell of coffee filled the cabin. As far away as I could get, he said, startled by the anger in his voice. She passed him the plastic mug filled to the brim with hot black coffee. How about you? You said you never knew your mother. I didn't. They split when I was little. She wouldn't come back in on the contract unless he agreed to cut her in on some
Cargo
kind of
scoop
stock plan. That's what
retracted.
he said anyway. So what's he like? He sipped coffee, then passed it back. She looked at him over the rim of the red plastic mug, her eyes ringed with Sally's makeup. You tell me, she said, or else ask me in 20 years. I'm 17. How the hell am I supposed to know? He laughed. You're starting to feel a little better now?
Landing gear
I
retracted.
guess so. Considering the circumstances. And suddenly he was aware of her in a way he hadn't been before, and his hands went anxiously to the controls. Good. We still have a long way to go.
Frameshift drive charging.
They slept in the hovercraft that night, parked behind the rusting steel lattice that had once supported a drive-in theater screen in southern Pennsylvania. Turner's parka spread on the armor-plate floorboards below the turbine's long bulge. She'd
4,
sipped the last of the
3,
coffee,
2,
cold now,
1.
as she sat in the square hatch opening above the passenger seat, watching the lightning bugs pulse across a field of yellowed grass. Somewhere in his dreams, still colored with random flashes from her father's dossier, she rolled against him, her breasts soft and warm against his bare back, through the thin fabric of her t-shirt, and then her arm came over him to stroke the flat muscles of his stomach. But he lay still, pretending to a deeper sleep, and soon found his way down into the darker passages of Mitchell's
Frameshift
biosol,
drive charging.
where strange things came to mingle with his own oldest fears and hurts. And awoke at dawn to hear her singing softly to herself from her perch in the roof hatch. My daddy, he
Ready to engage.
was a handsome devil. Got a chain about 9 miles long, and from every link a heart does dangle of another maid
4, 3,
he's
2,
loved and wrong.
1. Engage.
Chapter 22. Jammers. Jammers was up 12 more flights of dead escalator and occupied the rear third of the top floor. Aside from Leon's place, Bobby had never seen a
System
nightclub,
scan complete.
and he found Jammers both impressive and scary. Impressive because of its scale,
and what he took to be the exceptional quality of the fittings,
Frameshift
and
drive
scary
charging.
because a nightclub by day is somehow innately unreal. Witchy.
Frameshift drive charging.
He peered around, thumbs snagged in the back pockets of his new jeans, while Jackie conducted a whispered conversation with a long-faced white man in rumpled blue coveralls. The place was fitted out with
4,
dark ultra-suede
3,
banquettes,
2,
round black
1.
tables,
Engage.
and dozens of ornate screens of pierced wood. The ceiling was painted black, each table faintly illuminated by its own little recessed flood aimed straight down out of the dark. There was a central stage, brightly lit now with work lights strung on yellow flecks, and in the middle of the stage, a set of cherry-red acoustic drums. He wasn't sure why, but it gave him the creeps, some sidelong sense of a half-life, as though something was about to shift just at the edge of his vision. "Bobby," Jackie said, "come over here and meet Jammer." He crossed the stretch of plain dark carpet with all the cool he could muster and faced the long-faced man,
Frameshift drive
who had dark
charging.
thinning hair and wore a white evening shirt under his coveralls. The man's eyes were narrow, the hollows of his cheeks shadowed with a day's growth of beard. "Well,"
4,
the man said,
3, 2,
"you
1.
want to be a cowboy."
Engage.
He was looking at Bobby's t-shirt, and Bobby had the uncomfortable feeling that he might be about to laugh. "Jammer was a jockey," Jackie said. "Hot as they come, weren't you, Jammer?" "So they say," Jammer said, still looking at Bobby. "Long time ago, Jackie." "How many hours you logged running?" he asked Bobby. Bobby's face went hot. "Well, 1, I guess." Jammer raised his bushy
Frameshift
eyebrows.
drive charging.
"Gotta start somewhere." He smiled, his teeth small and unnaturally even, and Bobby thought too numerous. "Bobby," Jackie
4,
said,
3, 2.
"why don't you ask
1.
Jammer about this
Engage.
wig character that Finn was telling you about?" Jammer glanced at her, then back to Bobby. "You know the Finn? For a hot dogger, you're in pretty deep, aren't you?" He took a blue plastic inhaler from his hip pocket and inserted it in his left nostril, snorted, then put it back in his
Fuel
pocket.
scooping.
"Ludgate. The wig. Finn's talking about the wig. Must be in his dotage." Bobby didn't know what that meant, but it didn't seem like the time to ask. "Well," Bobby ventured, "this wig's up in orbit somewhere, and he sells the Finn stuff sometimes." "No shit. Well, you could have fooled me. I would have told you the wig was either dead or drooling. Crazier than your usual cowboy, you know what I mean? Batshit. Gone. Haven't heard of him in years." "Jammer," Jackie said, "I think it's maybe best if Bobby just tells you the story. Beauvoir's due here this afternoon, and he'll have some questions for you, so you better know where things stand." Jammer looked at her. "Well, I see. Mr. Beauvoir's calling in that favor, is he?"
Fuel scooping complete.
"Can't speak for him," she said, "but that would be my guess. We need a safe place to store the count here." "What count?" "Me," Bobby said. "That's me." "Great," Jammer said, with a total lack of enthusiasm. "So come on back into the office." Bobby couldn't keep his eyes off the cyberspace deck that took up a third of the surface of Jammer's antique oak desk. It was matte black, a
Frameshift
custom
drive
job,
charging.
no trademarks anywhere. He kept craning forward while he told Jammer about two-a-day in his attempted run, about the girl feeling thing and his mother getting blown up.
4,
It was the
3,
hottest-looking
2,
deck he'd ever seen.
1. Engage.
And he remembered Jackie saying that Jammer had been such a shit-hot cowboy in his day. Jammer slumped back in his chair when Bobby was finished. "You want to try it?" he asked. He sounded tired. "Try it?" "The deck. I think you might want to try it.
Fuel scooping.
It's something about the way you keep rubbing your ass on the chair. Either you want to try it or you got to piss bad."
Fuel scoop.
"Shit,
disengaged.
yeah. I mean, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I would." "Why not? No way for anybody to know it's you and not me, right?"
Frameshift drive charging.
"Why don't you jack in with him, Jackie? Kinda keep track." He opened a desk drawer and took out 2 Trode sets. "But don't do anything, right? I mean, just buzz on out and spin.
4,
Don't try to run any
3,
numbers.
2.
I owe Beauvoir and
Engage.
Lucas a favor, and it looks like how I'm paying it back is by helping keep you intact." He handed one set of Trodes to Jackie, the other to Bobby. He stood up, grabbed handles on either side of the black console, and spun it around so it faced Bobby. "Go on. You'll cream your jeans. Thing's 10 years old, and it'll still wipe ass on most
Fuel
anything.
scooping.
Guy name of Automatic Jack built it straight up from scratch. He was Bobby Quine's hardware artist once.
Fuel scooping
2 of them
complete.
burnt the blue lights together, but that was probably before you were born." Bobby already had his Trodes on. Now he looked at Jackie. "You ever jacked tandem before?" He shook his head. "Okay, we'll jack, but I'll hang off your left shoulder. I say jack out, jack out. You see anything funny, it'll be because I'm with you, understand?" He nodded. She
Frameshift
undid a pair of
drive
long,
charging.
silver-headed pins at the rear of her fedora and took it off, putting it down on the desk beside Jammer's deck. She slid the Trodes on over the orange silk headscarf and smoothed the contacts against her forehead.
4, 3, 2.
"Let's go,"
1.
she said.
Engage.
Now and ever was fast forward. Jammer's deck jacked up so high above the neon hot cores, a topography of data he didn't know. Big stuff, mountain high, sharp and corporate in the non-place that was cyberspace. "Slow it down, Bobby." Jackie's voice, low and sweet beside him in
Fuel
the void.
scooping.
"Jesus Christ, this thing's slick!" "Yeah, but damp it down. The rush isn't any good for us.
Fuel scooping
You want to
complete.
cruise, keep us up here, and slow it down." He eased off on forward until they seemed to coast along. He turned to the left, expecting to see her there, but there was nothing.
Frameshift drive charging.
"I'm here," she said. "Don't worry." "Who was Quine?" "Quine? Some cowboy Jammer knew. He knew 'em all in his day."
4, 3.
He took a
2,
right angle left at
1.
random,
Engage.
pivoting smoothly at the grid intersection, testing the deck for response. It was amazing. Totally unlike anything he'd felt before in cyberspace. "Holy shit! This thing makes an Ono Sendai look like a kid's toy!" "It's probably got OS circuitry in it. That's what they used to use," Jammer says. "Takes us up a little more."
Fuel
They rose
scooping.
effortlessly through the grid, the data receding below them. "There isn't a hell of a lot to see up here," he
Fuel
complained.
scooping complete.
"Wrong. You see some interesting stuff you hang out long enough in the blank parts." The fabric of the Matrix seemed to shiver, directly in front of them. Jackie, stop here. Hold it.
Frameshift drive
It's
charging.
okay. Trust me." Somewhere, far away, his hands moving over the unfamiliar keyboard configuration. He held them steady now,
4,
while a section of
3,
cyberspace
2,
blurred.
1.
Grew
Engage.
What is Dan Bala ab Montele? The voice said, harsh in his head, and in his mouth a taste like blood. Danbala is riding her. He knew somehow what the words
System
meant,
scan
but the voice
complete.
was iron in his
Fuel
head.
scooping.
The milky fabric divided, seemed to bubble, became
Fuel
two
scooping
patches of
complete.
shifting gray. Legba, she said. Legba in Ugo Ferai, god of war. Papa Ugu, San
Frameshift
Jacques
drive
Major,
charging.
vive la Vierge. Iron laughter filled the matrix, sawing through Bobby's head. Mabkit tu miseak tu gion,
4,
said another voice,
3,
fluid and quicksilver
2,
and cold.
1. Engage.
Si, Papa. She has come here to throw away her bad luck. And then that one laughed as well, and Bobby fought down a wave of sheer hysteria as the silver laughter rose through him like bubbles. Has she bad luck, the horse of Danbala?
Fuel scooping.
Boomed the iron voice of Ugo Ferre, and for an instant Bobby thought he saw a figure flicker in the gray fog. The
Fuel
voice
scooping
hooted its
complete.
terrible laughter. Indeed, indeed, but she knows it not. She is not my horse, no, else I would cure her lack. Bobby wanted to cry, to die, anything to escape the voices, the utterly impossible wind that had started to blow out of the gray warps, a hot,
Frameshift
damp
drive
wind that
charging.
smelled of things he couldn't identify. And she calls praise on the Virgin. Hear me, little sister. La Vierge draws close indeed,
4, 3, 2,
said the other.
1. Engage.
She moves through my province now. I who rule the roads, the highways. But I, Ugo Farai, tell you that your enemies draw near as well. To the gate, sister, and beware. And then the gray areas faded, dwindled, shrank. Check us out,
Fuel scooping.
she said, her voice small and distant. And then she said,
Fuel
Lucas is dead.
scooping complete.
Jammer took a bottle of scotch from his desk drawer and carefully poured 6 centimeters of the stuff into a plastic highball glass. You look like shit, he said to Jackie, and Bobby was startled by the gentleness in the man's voice. They'd been jacked out for at least 10 minutes,
Frameshift drive
and nobody had said
charging.
anything at all. Jackie looked crushed and kept gnawing at her lower lip. Jammer looked either unhappy or angry. Bobby wasn't sure. How come you said Lucas was dead?
4, 3,
Bobby ventured,
2,
because it
1.
seemed to him that the
Engage.
silence was tilting up in Jammer's cramped office like something that could choke you. Jackie looked at him and didn't seem to focus. They wouldn't come to me like that if Lucas were alive, she said. There are pacts, agreements. Legba is always invoked
Fuel
first,
scoop-
but he should have come with Danbala. His personality depends on the loa he manifests with.
complete.
Lucas must be dead. Jammer pushed the glass of whiskey across the desk, but Jackie shook her head. The trode set still riding her forehead, chrome and black nylon. He made a disgusted face, pulled the glass back and downed it himself. What a load of shit. Things made a lot more sense before you people started screwing around with them. We didn't bring him here, Jammer, she said. They were just there, and they found us because we understood them. Same load of shit, Jammer said wearily. Whatever they are, wherever they came from, they just shaped themselves to what a bunch of crazed spades wanted to see. You follow me? There's no way in hell there'd be anything out there that you had to talk to in fucking Bush Haitian. You and your voodoo cult. They just saw that, and they saw a setup. And Beauvoir and Lucas and the
Frameshift
rest,
drive
they're
charging.
businessmen first. And those goddamn things know how to make deals. It's a natural. He tightened the cap on his bottle and put it back in the drawer.
4, 3, 2,
No, hon.
1. Engage.
It could just be that somebody very big, with a lot of muscle on the grid, they're just taking you for a ride. Projecting those things, all that shit. And you know it's possible, don't you? Don't you, Jackie? No way. Jackie said, her voice
Fuel
cold and
scooping.
even. But how I know that's not anything I can explain.
Fuel scooping
Jammer
complete.
took a black slab of plastic from his pocket and began to shave. Sure, he said. The razor hummed as he worked on the line of his jaw.
Frameshift drive charging.
I lived in cyberspace for 8 years, right? Well, I know there wasn't anything out there, not then. Anyway, you want me to phone Lucas, set your mind at ease one way or the other? You got the phone
4,
number for that Rolls of
3,
his?
2,
No,
1.
Jackie said.
Engage.
Don't bother. Best we lay low till Beauvoir turns up. She stood pulling off the trodes and picking up her hat. I'm going to lie down, try to sleep. You keep an eye on Bobby. She turned and walked to the office door.
Fuel
She looked
scooping.
as though she was
System
sleepwalking.
Scan complete.
All the energy gone out of her. Wonderful, Jammer said, running the shaver along his upper lip.
Fuel scooping complete.
You want a drink? He asked Bobby. Well, Bobby said, it's kind of early. For you, maybe. He put the razor back in his pocket. The door closed behind Jackie.
Frameshift drive
Jammer
charging.
leaned forward slightly. What did they look like, kid? You gonna make? Just kinda grayish? Fuzzy? Jammer looked disappointed.
4, 3,
He slouched
2,
back in his chair again.
1. Engage.
I don't think you can get a good look at him unless you're part of it. He drummed his fingers on the chair arm. You think they're for real? Well, I wouldn't want to try messing one around. Jammer looked at him. No? Well, maybe you're smarter than you look there.
Fuel scooping.
I wouldn't want to try messing one around myself. I got out of the game before they started turning up. So what do you
Fuel
think they
scooping
are?
complete.
Ah, still getting smarter. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think I can swallow them being a bunch of Haitian voodoo gods, but who knows? He narrowed his eyes. Could be their
Frameshift
virus
drive
programs that have gotten
charging.
loose in the Matrix and replicated and gotten really smart. That's scary enough. Maybe the Turing people want it kept quiet. Or maybe the AIs have found a way to split parts of themselves off into the Matrix,
4,
which would
3,
drive the Turings crazy.
2, 1.
I knew this
Engage.
Tibetan guy did hardware mod for jockeys. He said they were tulpas. Bobby blinked. A tulpa's a thought form, kind of superstition. Really heavy people can split off a kind of ghost made of negative energy. He shrugged. More horseshit. Like Jackie's voodoo guys.
Fuel scooping.
Well, it looks to me like Lucas and Beauvoir and the others, they sure as hell play it like it was all real, and not just like it was an act. Jammer nodded. You got it.
Fuel scooping
And they've been
complete.
doing damn well for themselves by it, too. So there's something there. He shrugged and yawned. I gotta sleep, too. You can do whatever you want as long as you keep your hands off my deck. And don't try to go outside. Or 10 kinds of alarms will start screaming.
Frameshift drive charging.
Juice and cheese and shit in the fridge behind the bar. Bobby decided that the place was still scary, now that he had it to himself. But that it was interesting enough to make the
4,
scariness worthwhile.
3, 2, 1.
He wandered up and down
Engage.
behind the bar, touching the handles of the beer taps and the chrome drink nozzles. There was a machine that made ice, and another one that dispensed boiling water. He made himself a cup of Japanese instant coffee and sorted through Jammer's file of audio cassettes.
Fuel
He'd never heard of
scooping.
any of the bands or artists. He wondered whether that meant that Jammer, who was old, liked old stuff,
Fuel scooping complete.
or if this was all really new stuff that wouldn't filter out to Barrytown, probably by way of Leon's, for another 2 weeks. He found a gun under the black and silver Universal Credit console at the end of the bar. A kind of fat little
Frameshift
machine
drive
gun
charging.
with a magazine that stuck straight down out of the handle. It was stuck under the bar with a strip of lime green Velcro, and he didn't think it was a good idea to touch it. After a while, he didn't feel frightened
4,
anymore, just
3,
kind of
2,
bored and
1.
edgy.
Engage.
He took his cooling coffee and walked out into the middle of the seating area. He sat at one of the tables and pretended he was Count Zero, top console artist in the sprawl, waiting for some dudes to show and talk about a deal. Some run they needed done, and nobody but the Count was even remotely up for it.
Fuel
Sure,
scooping.
he said to the empty nightclub, his eyes hooded. I'll cut it for you, if you got the
Fuel
money.
scooping complete.
They paled when he named his price. The place was soundproofed. You couldn't hear the bustle of the 14th floor stalls at all. Only the hum of some kind of air conditioner and the occasional gurgles of the hot water machine. Tired of the Count's power plays,
Frameshift
Bobby
drive
left the coffee
charging.
cup on the table and crossed to the entranceway, running his hand along an old stuffed velvet rope that was slung between polished brass poles. Careful not to touch the glass doors themselves, he settled himself
4,
on a cheap steel
3,
stool with a tape-patched leatherette top
1.
beside the coat
Engage.
check window. A dim bulb burned in the coat room. You could see a couple of dozen old wooden hangers dangling from steel rods, each one hung with a round yellow hand-numbered tag. He guessed Jammer sat here sometimes to check out the clientele. He didn't really see why anybody
Fuel
who'd been a
scooping.
shit-hot cowboy for 8 years would want to run a nightclub, but maybe it was sort of a hobby. He guessed you can get a lot of girls running a
Fuel
nightclub,
scooping complete.
but he'd assumed you can get a lot anyway if you were rich. And if Jammer had been a top jock for 8 years, Bobby figured he had to be
Frameshift
rich.
drive charging.
He thought about the scene in The Matrix, the gray patches and the voices. He shivered. He still didn't see why it meant Lucas was dead.
4, 3,
How could Lucas be
2,
dead?
1.
Then he
Engage.
remembered that his mother was dead. And somehow that didn't seem too real either. Jesus. It all got on his nerves. He wished he were outside, on the other side of the doors, checking out the stalls and the shoppers and the people who worked there. He reached out and drew the velour curtain aside,
Fuel scooping.
just wide enough to peer out through the thick old glass, taking in the rainbow jumble of stalls and the characteristic grazing
Fuel
gait of the
scooping
shoppers. And framed for him, square in the middle of it all, beside a table jammed with
Frameshift
surplus
drive
analog
charging.
bombs, logic probes, and power conditioners, was the raceless, bone-heavy face of Leon. And the deep-set, hideous eyes seemed to
4,
look into Bobby's
3,
with an
2,
audible click of
1.
recognition.
Engage.
And then Leon did something Bobby couldn't remember ever having seen him do. He smiled. Chapter 23. Closer. The Jowl steward
Fuel
offered
scooping.
her a choice of
System
SimStim
scan
cassettes.
complete.
A tour of the Foxton retrospective at the Tate the previous August, a period adventure taped in Ghana,
scooping
Ashanti,
complete.
highlights from Bizet's Carmen, as viewed from a private box at the Tokyo Opera, or 30 minutes of Tali Isham's syndicated talk show, Top People.
Frameshift drive charging.
Ms. Ofsky. Marley nodded. She'd given Paleologos her mother's maiden name, which had probably been stupid. The steward smiled understandingly.
4,
A
3,
cassette can
2,
definitely ease
1.
the lift off.
Engage.
The Carmen's very popular this week. Gorgeous costumes, I understand.
She shook her head, in no mood for opera. She loathed Foxton, and would have preferred to feel the full force of acceleration rather than live through a shanty. She took the Isham tape by default, as the
Fuel
least of four
scooping.
evils. The steward checked her seat harness, handed her the cassette and a little throwaway tiara in gray plastic,
Fuel
then
scooping
moved
complete.
on. She put the plastic Trode set on, jacked it into the seat arm, sighed, and slotted the cassette in the opening beside the jack.
Frameshift
The
drive
interior of the
charging.
JAL shuttle vanished in a burst of Aegean blue, and she watched the words Tali Isham's top people expand across the cloudless sky in elegant sans serif capitals.
4, 3,
Tali
2,
Isham had been a
1.
constant in the STEM
Engage.
industry for as long as Marley remembered, an ageless golden girl who'd come in on the first wave of the new medium. Now Marley found herself locked into Tali's tanned, lithe, tremendously comfortable sensorium. Tali Isham glowed, breathed deeply and easily,
Fuel
her
scooping.
elegant bones riding in the embrace of a musculature that seemed never to have known tension.
Fuel scooping
Accessing her
complete.
STEM recordings was like falling into a bath of perfect health, feeling the spring in the star's high arches and the jut of her breasts against the silky white Egyptian cotton of her simple blouse.
Frameshift drive charging.
She was leaning against a pocked white balustrade above the tiny harbor of a Greek island town, a cascade of flowering trees falling away below her, down a hillside built from whitewashed stone and narrow twisting
4,
stairs.
3, 2,
A boat sounded in the
1.
harbor.
Engage.
The tourists are hurrying back to their cruise ship now,
Tali said and smiled. When she smiled, Marley could feel the smoothness of the star's white teeth, taste the freshness of her mouth, and the stone of the balustrade was pleasantly rough against her bare forearms.
but one
Fuel
visitor to
scooping.
our island will be staying with us this afternoon. Someone I've longed to meet, and I'm sure you'll be delighted
Fuel
and
scooping
surprised,
complete.
as he's someone who ordinarily shuns major media coverage.
She straightened, turned, and smiled into the tanned, smiling face of Yosef Virek.
Frameshift drive charging.
Marley tore the set from her forehead, and the white plastic of the JAL shuttle seemed to slam into place all around her. Warning signs were blinking on the console overhead, and she could feel a vibration that seemed to
4,
gradually rise in
3,
pitch.
2,
Vera?
1. Engage.
She looked at the Trode set. "Well," she said, "I suppose you are a top person."
I beg your pardon.
The Japanese student beside her bobbed in his harness in a strange little approximation of a bow.
You are in some difficulty with your stim?
Fuel scooping.
She said, "Excuse me." She slid the set on again, and the interior of the shuttle dissolved in a buzz of sensory
Fuel scooping
static,
complete.
a jarring melange of sensations that abruptly gave way to the calm grace of Tali Isham,
Frameshift
who had
drive
taken
charging.
Virek's cool, firm hand and was smiling into his soft blue eyes. Virek smiled back, his teeth very white.
Delighted to be here, Tali,
He said,
4, 3,
and Marley
2,
let herself sink into the
1.
reality of the tape,
Engage.
accepting Tali's recorded sensory input as her own. STEM was a medium she ordinarily avoided, something in her personality conflicting with the required degree of passivity. Virek wore a soft white shirt, cotton duck trousers rolled to just below the knee, and very plain brown leather sandals. His hand still in hers, Tali returned to the balustrade.
I'm sure, she said, that there are many things our audience...
The sea was gone. An irregular plain covered in a green-black growth like lichen spread out to the horizon, broken by the silhouettes of the neo-Gothic spires of Gaudi's
Fuel
Church of the Sagrada Familia. The edge of the world was lost in a low, bright mist, and
Fuel
a sound
scooping
like
complete.
drowned bells tolled in across the plain. "You have an audience of one today," Virak said, and looked at Tali Isham through his round, rimless glasses. "Hello, Marley." Marley struggled to reach the Troads, but her arms were made of stone. G-force, the shuttle lifting off from its concrete pad. He'd trapped her here. "I understand," said Tali, smiling, leaning back against the balustrade, her elbows on warm, rough stone. "What a lovely idea. Your Marley, Herr Virak, must be a lucky girl indeed." And it came to her, to Marley, that this wasn't SenseNet's Tali Isham, but a part of Virak's construct, a programmed point of view worked up from years of top people, and that now there was no choice, no way out, except to accept it, to listen, to give Virak her attention. The fact of his having caught her here, pinned her here this way, told her that her intuition had been correct. The machine, the structure, was there, was real. Virak's money was a sort of universal solvent, dissolving barriers to his will. "I'm sorry," he said, "to learn that you are upset. Paco tells me that you are fleeing from us, but I prefer to see it as the drive of an artist toward her goal. You have sensed, I think, something of the nature of my gestalt, and it has frightened you. As well it should. This cassette was prepared an hour before your shuttle was scheduled to lift off from Orly. We know your destination, of course, but I have no intention of following you. You are doing your job, Marley. I only regret that we were unable to prevent the death of your friend, Alan. But we now know the identity of his killers and their employers." Tali Isham's eyes were Marley's eyes now, and they were locked with yours, the blue energy burning there. Alan was murdered by the hired agents of Mass Biolabs. He continued, and it was Mass who provided him with the coordinates of your current destination. Mass who gave him the hologram you saw. My relationship with Mass Biolabs has been ambivalent, to say the least. 2 years ago, a subsidiary of mine attempted to buy them out. The sum involved would have affected the entire global economy. They refused. Paco has determined that Alan died because they discovered that he was attempting to market the information they had provided, market it to third parties. He frowned. Exceedingly foolish, because he was utterly ignorant of the
Lighting gear
nature of the
deployed.
product he was offering. How like Alan, she thought, and felt a wave of pity. Seeing him curled there on the hideous carpet, his spine outlined beneath the green fabric of his jacket. You should know, I think, that my search for our box maker involves more than art, Marley. He removed his glasses and polished them in a fold of his white shirt. She found something obscene in the calculated humanity of the gesture. I have reason to believe that the maker of these artifacts is in some position to offer me freedom, Marley. I am not a well man. He replaced the glasses, settling the fine gold earpieces carefully. When I last requested a remote visual of the vat I inhabit in Stockholm, I was shown a thing like 3 truck trailers, lashed in a dripping net of support lines. If I were able to leave that, Marley, or rather, to leave the riot of cells it contains, well, he smiled his famous smile again. What wouldn't I pay?
Incoming message.
And Tally Marley's eyes swung to take in the expanse of dark lichen and the distant towers of the misplaced cathedral. You lost consciousness, the steward was saying, his fingers moving across her neck. It isn't uncommon, and our onboard medical computers tell us you're in excellent health. However, we've applied a derma disc to counteract the adaptation syndrome you might experience prior to docking. His hand left her neck. Europe after the rains, she said. Max Ernst. The lichen. The man stared down at her, his face alert now and expressing professional concern. Excuse me, could you repeat that? I'm sorry, she said. A dream. Are we there yet at the terminal? Another hour, he said. Japan Air's orbital terminus was a white toroid, studded with domes and ringed with the dark-rimmed oval openings of docking bays. The terminal above Marley's G-Web, though above had temporarily lost its usual meaning, displayed an exquisitely drafted animation of the torus in rotation, while a series of voices, in 7 languages, announced that the passengers on board JAL's Shuttle 580, Orly Terminus 1, would be taxied to the terminal at the earliest opportunity. JAL offered apologies for the delay, which was due to routine repairs underway in 7 of the 12 bays. Marley cringed in her G-Web, seeing the invisible hand of Virek in everything now. No, she thought, there must be a way. I want out of it, she told herself. I want a few hours as a free agent, and then I'll be done with him. Goodbye, Herr Virek. I return to the land of the living, as poor Alan never will. Alan who died because I took your job. She blinked her eyes when the first tear came, then stared wide-eyed as a child at the minute floating spherelet the tear had become. And Maas, she wondered, who were they? Vera claimed that they had murdered Alan, that Alan had been working for them. She had vague recollections of stories in the media, something to do with the newest generation of computers, some ominous-sounding process in which immortal hybrid cancers spewed out tailored molecules that became units of circuitry. She remembered now that Paco had said that the screen of his modular telephone was a Maas product. The interior of the JAL toroid was so bland, so unremarkable, so utterly like any crowded airport that she felt like laughing. There was the same scent of perfume, human tension, and heavily conditioned air, and the same background hum of conversation. The .8 gravity would have made it easier to carry a suitcase, but she only had her black purse. Now she took her tickets from one of its zippered inner pockets and checked the number of her connecting shuttle against the columns of numbers arrayed on the nearest wall screen. 2 hours to departure. Whatever Virek might say, she was sure that his machine was already busy, infiltrating the shuttle's crew or roster of passengers, the substitutions lubricated by a film of money. There would be last-minute illnesses, changes in plans, accidents. Slinging the purse over her shoulder, she marched off across the concave floor of white ceramic as though she actually knew where she was going or had some sort of plan, but knowing with each step she took that she didn't. Those soft blue eyes haunted her. "Damn you," she said. And a jowly Russian businessman in a dark Ginza suit sniffed and raised his newsfax, blocking her out of his world. "So I told the bitch, see, you gotta get those opto-isolators and the breakout boxes out to Sweet Jane, or I'll glue your ass to the bulkhead with gasket paste." Raucous female laughter, and Marley glanced up from her sushi tray. The three women sat 2 empty tables away, their own table thick with beer cans and stacks of styrofoam trays smeared with brown soy sauce. One of them belched loudly and took a long pull at her beer. "So? How'd she take it, Rez?" This was somehow the cue for another longer burst of laughter, and the woman who'd first attracted Marley's attention put her head down in her arms and laughed until her shoulders shook. Marley stared dully at the trio, wondering what they were. Now the laughter had subsided, and the first woman sat up, wiping tears from her eyes. They were all quite drunk, Marley decided, young and loud and rough-looking. The first woman was slight and sharp-faced, with wide gray eyes above a thin, straight nose. Her hair was some impossible shade of silver, clipped short like a schoolboy's, and she wore an oversized canvas vest or sleeveless jacket, covered entirely in bulging pockets, studs, and rectangular strips of Velcro. The garment hung open, revealing, from Marley's angle, a small round breast sheathed in what seemed to be a bra of fine pink and black mesh. The other two were older and heavier, the muscles of their bare arms defined sharply in the seemingly sourceless light of the terminal cafeteria. The first woman shrugged, her shoulders moving inside the big vest. "Not that she'll do it," she said. The second woman laughed again, but not as heartily, and consulted a chronometer riveted on a wide leather wristband. "Me for off," she said. "Got a Zion run. They need pods of algae for the Swedes." Then shoved her chair back from the table, stood up, and Marley read the embroidered patch centered across the shoulders of her black leather vest. O'Grady Wajima, the Edith S., interorbital hauling. Now the woman beside her stood, hitching up the waistband of her baggy jeans. "I tell you, Rez, you let that cunt short you on those breakouts, it'll be bad for your name." "Excuse me?" Marley said, fighting the quaver in her voice. The woman in the black vest turned and stared at her. "Yeah?" The woman looked her up and down, unsmiling. "I saw your vest. The name Edith S., that's a ship, a spaceship." "A spaceship?" The woman beside her raised thick eyebrows. "Oh yeah, honey. A whole mighty spaceship." "She's a tug," the woman in the black vest said, and turned to go. "I want to hire you," Marley said. "Hire me?" Now they were all staring at her, faces blank and unsmiling. "What's that mean?" Marley fumbled deep in the black Brussels purse and came up with the half-sheaf of new yen that Paleologos, the travel agent, had returned after taking his fee. "I'll give you this." The girl with the short silver hair whistled softly. The women glanced at one another. The one in the black vest shrugged. "Jesus," she said. "Where you want to go? Mars?" Marley dug into her purse again and produced the folded blue paper from a pack of Gauloise. She handed it to the woman in the black vest, who unfolded it, and read the orbital coordinates that Alan had written there in green felt pen. "Well," the woman said, "it's a quick enough hop for that kind of money. But O'Grady and I, we're doing Zion 2300 GMT contract job. What about you, Rez?" She handed the paper to the seated girl, who read it, looked up at Marley, and asked, "When?" "Now," Marley said. "Right now." The girl pushed up from the table, the legs of her chair clattering on the ceramic, her vest swinging open to reveal that what Marley had taken for the net of a pink and black bra was a single tattooed rose that entirely covered her left breast. "You're on, sister. Cash up." "Means give her the money now," O'Grady said. "I don't want anyone to know where we're going," Marley said. The three women laughed. "You come to the right gal," O'Grady said, and Rez grinned. Chapter 24. Run straight down. The rain came on when he turned east again, making for the sprawl's fringe burbs and the blasted belt country of the industrial zones. It came down in a solid wall, blinding him until he found the switch for the wipers. Rudy hadn't kept the blades in shape, so he slowed, the turbines whined lowering to a roar, and edged over the shoulder, the apron bag nosing past shredded husks of truck tires. "What's wrong?" "I can't see. The wiper blades are rotten." He tapped the button for the lights, and four tight beams stabbed out from either side of the hover's wedge of hood and lost themselves in the gray wall of the downpour. He shook his head. "Why don't we stop?" "We're too close to the sprawl. They patrol all this. Copters. They scan the ID panel on the roof and see we've got Ohio plates and got a weird chassis configuration. They might want to check us out. We don't want that." "What are you going to do?" "Keep to the shoulder until I can turn off, then get us under some cover if I can." He held the hover steady and swung it around in place, the headlights flashing off the day-glow orange diagonals on an upright pole marking a service road. He made for the pole, the bulging lip of the apron bag bobbling over a thick rectangular crash guard of concrete. "This might do it," he said as they slid past the pole. The service road was barely wide enough for them. Branches and undergrowth scratched against the narrow side windows, scraping along the hover's steel plate flanks. "Lights down there," Angie said, straining forward in her harness to peer through the rain. Turner made out a watery yellow glow and twin dark uprights. He laughed. "Gas station," he said. "Left over from the old system, before they put the big road through. Somebody must live there. Too bad we don't run on gasoline." He eased the hover down the gravel slope. As he drew nearer, he saw that the yellow glow came from a pair of rectangular windows. He thought he saw a figure move in one of them. "Country," he said. "These boys may not be too happy to see us." He reached into the parka and slid the Smith & Wesson from its nylon holster, put it on the seat between his thighs. When they were 5 meters from the rusting gas pumps, he sat the hover down in a broad puddle and killed the turbines. The rain was still pissing down in wind-blown sheets, and he saw a figure in a flapping khaki poncho duck out of the front door of the station. He slid the side window open 10 centimeters and raised his voice above the rain. "Sorry to bother you. We had to get off the road. Our wipers are trashed. Didn't know you were down here." The man's hands and the glow from the windows were hidden beneath the plastic poncho, but it was obvious that he held something. "Private property," the man said, his lean face streaked rain. "Couldn't stay on the road," Turner called. "Sorry to bother you." The man opened his mouth, began to gesture with the thing held beneath the poncho, and his head exploded. It almost seemed to Turner that it happened before the red light died down and touched him. Pencil-thick beam swinging casually, as though someone were playing with a flashlight. A blossom red, beaten down by the rain, as the figure went to its knees and tumbled forward. A wire-stocked Savage 410 sliding from beneath the poncho. Turner hadn't been aware of moving, but he found that he'd stoked the turbines, swung the controls over to Angie, and clawed his way out of his harness. "I say go, run it through the station." Then he was up, yanking at the lever that opened the roof hatch, the heavy revolver in his hand. The roar of the black Honda reached him as soon as the hatch slid back, a lowering shadow overhead, just visible through the driving rain. "Now!" He pulled the trigger before she could kick them forward, and through the wall of the old station, the recoil jarring his elbow numb against the roof of the hover. The bullet exploded somewhere overhead with a gratifying crack. Angie floored the hover, and they plunged through the wood frame structure, with barely enough time for Turner to get his head and shoulders back down through the hatch. Something in the house exploded, probably a propane canister, and the hover skewed to the left. Angie swung them back around as they crashed out through the far wall. "Where?" she yelled above the turbine. As if in answer, the black Honda came corkscrewing down, 20 meters in front of them, and threw up a silver sheet of rain. Turner grabbed the controls and they slid forward, the hover blasting up 10-meter fantails of groundwater. They took the little combat copter square in its polycarbon canopy, its alloy fuselage crumpling like paper under the impact. Turner backed off and went in again, faster. This time, the broken copter slammed into the trunks of 2 wet gray pines, lay there like some kind of long-winged fly. "What happened?" Angie said, her hands to her face. "What happened?" Turner tore registration papers and dusty sunglasses from a compartment in the door beside him, found a flashlight, checked its batteries. "What happened?" Angie said again, like a recording. "What happened?" He scrambled back up through the hatch, the gun in one hand, the light in the other. The rain had slackened. He jumped down onto the hover's hood, and then over the bumpers and into ankle-deep puddles, splashing toward the bent black rotors of the Honda. There was a reek of escaping jet fuel. The polycarbon canopy had cracked like an egg. He aimed the Smith & Wesson and thumbed the xenon flash twice. 2 silent pops of merciless light, showing him blood and twisted limbs through the shattered plastic. He waited, then used the flashlight. 2 of them. He came closer, holding the flashlight well away from his body, an old habit. Nothing moved. The smell of escaping fuel grew even stronger. Then he was tugging at the bent hatch. It opened. They both wore image amp goggles. The round, blank eye of the laser stared straight up into the night, and he reached down to touch the matted sheepskin collar of the dead man's bomber jacket. The blood that covered the man's beard looked very dark, almost black in the flashlight's beam. It was Oki. He swung the beam left and saw that the other man, the pilot, was Japanese. He swung the beam back and found a flat black flask beside Oki's foot. He picked it up, stuffed it into one of the parka's pockets, and dashed back to the hover. In spite of the rain, orange flames were starting to lick up through the wreckage of the gas station. He scrambled up the hover's bumper, across the hood, up again, and down through the hatch. "What happened?" Angie said, as though he hadn't left. "What happened?" He fell into his seat, not bothering with the harness, and revved the turbine. "That's a Hosaka helicopter," he said, swinging them around. "They must have been following us. They had a laser. They waited until we were off the highway. Didn't want to leave us out there for the cops to find. When we pulled in here, they decided to go for us, but they must have figured that the poor fucker was with us. Or maybe they were just taking out a witness." "His head," she said, her voice shaking. "His head." That was the laser, Turner said, steering back up the service road. The rain was thinning, nearly gone. "Steam. The brain vaporizes and the skull blows." Angie doubled over and threw up. Turner steered with one hand, Oki's flask in the other. He pried the snap-fit lid open with his teeth and gulped back a mouthful of Oki's wild turkey. As they reached the shoulder of the highway, the Honda's fuel found the flames of the ruined station, and the twisted fireball showed Turner the mall again, the light of the parachute flares. The sky whiting out as the jet streaked for the Sonora border. Angie straightened up, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and began to shake. "We've got to get out of here," he said, driving east again. She said nothing, and he glanced sideways to see her rigid and upright in her seat, her eyes showing white in the faint glow of the instruments, her face blank. He'd seen her that way in Rudy's bedroom, when Sally had called them in, and now that same flood of language, a soft, fast rattle of something that might have been patois French. He had no recorder, no time. He had to drive. "Hang on," he said as they accelerated. "You'll be okay." Sure, she couldn't hear him at all. Her teeth were chattering. He could hear it above the turbine. "Stop," he thought. Long enough to get something between her teeth. His wallet or a fold of cloth. Her hands were plucking spastically at the straps of the harness. "There is a sick child in my house." The hover nearly left the pavement when he heard the voice come from her mouth, deep and slow and weirdly glutinous. "I hear the dice being tossed for her bloody dress. Many are the hands who dig her grave tonight, and yours as well. Enemies pray for your death, hired man. They pray until they sweat. Their prayers are a river of fever." And then a sort of croaking that might have been laughter. Turner risked a glance, saw a silver thread of drool descend from her rigid lips. The deep muscles of her face had contorted into a mask he didn't know. "Who are you?" "I am the Lord of Roads." "What do you want?" "This child for my horse, that she may move among the towns of men. It is well that you drive east. Carry her to your city,
I shall ride her again. And Samedi rides with you, gunman. He is the wind you hold in your hands, but he is fickle, the lord of graveyards. No matter that you have served him well.
He turned in time to see her slump sideways in the harness, her head lolling, mouth slack. Chapter 25. Casual Gothic.
"This is the Finn's phone program,"
said the speaker below the screen.
"And the Finn, he's not here. You want to download, you know the access code already. You want to leave a message, leave it already."
Bobby stared at the image on the screen and slowly shook his head. Most phone programs were equipped with cosmetic video subprograms, written to bring the video image of the owner into greater accordance with the more widespread paradigms of personal beauty, erasing blemishes, and subtly molding facial outlines to meet idealized statistical norms. The effect of the cosmetic program on the Finn's grotesque features was definitely the weirdest thing Bobby had ever seen, as though somebody had gone after the face of a dead gopher with a full range of mortician's crayons and paraffin injections.
"That's not natural,"
said Jammer, sipping scotch. Bobby nodded.
"Finn," Jammer said, "is agoraphobic. Gives him the hives to leave that impacted shit pile of a shop. And he's a phone junkie. Can't not answer a call if he's there. I'm starting to think the bitch is right. Lucas is dead and some heavy shit is going down."
"The bitch," Jackie said from behind the bar, "knows already."
"She knows,"
Jammer said, putting the plastic glass down and fingering his bolo tie.
"She knows. Talked to a hoodoo in the Matrix, so she knows."
"Well, Lucas isn't answering and Beauvoir isn't answering, so maybe she's right."
Bobby reached out and shut off the phone as the record tone began to squeal. Jammer was gotten up in a pleated shirt, white dinner jacket, and black trousers with satin stripes down the leg, and Bobby took this to be his working outfit for the club.
"Nobody's here,"
he said now, looking from Bobby to Jackie.
"Where's Bogue and Sharky? Where's the waitresses?"
"Who's Bogue and Sharky?"
Bobby asked. "The bartenders. I don't like this." He got up from his chair, walked to the door, and gently edged one of the curtains aside.
"What the fuck are those dipshits doing out there?"
"Hey, Count, this looks like your speed. Get over here." Bobby got up full of misgivings. He hadn't felt like telling Jackie or Jammer about letting Leon see him because he didn't want to look like a Wilson, and walked over to where the club owner stood.
"Go on. Take a peek. Don't let them see you. They're pretending so hard not to watch us you could almost smell it."
Bobby moved the curtain, careful to keep the crack no more than a centimeter wide, and looked out. The shopping crowd seemed to have been replaced almost entirely by black-crested Gothic boys in leather and studs, and, amazingly, by an equal proportion of blonde casuals, the latter decked out in the week's current Shinjuku cottons and gold-buckled white loafers.
"I don't know,"
Bobby said, looking up at Jammer.
"but they shouldn't be together. Casuals and Gothics, you know? They're like natural enemies. It's in the DNA or something."
He took another look.
"God damn, there's about 100 of them."
Jammer stuck his hands deep in his pleated trousers.
"You know any of those guys personally?"
"Gothics, I know some of them to talk to, except it's hard to tell them apart.
Casuals, they'll stomp anything that isn't casual. That's mainly what they're about. But I just been cut up by Lobes anyway, and Lobes are supposed to be under treaty with the Gothics, so who knows?
Jammer sighed.
So I guess you don't feel like strolling out there and asking one what they think they're up to?
No, Bobby said earnestly. I don't. Jammer looked at Bobby in a calculating way, a way that Bobby definitely didn't like. Something small and hard dropped from the high black ceiling and clicked loudly on one of the round black tables. The thing bounced and hit the carpet, rolling, and landed between the toes of Bobby's new boots. Automatically he bent and picked it up. An old-fashioned, slot-headed machine screw, its threads brown with rust and its head clotted with dull black latex paint. He looked up as a second one struck the table and caught a glimpse of an unnervingly agile Jammer vaulting the bar beside the Universal Credit Unit. Jammer vanished. There was a faint ripping sound, Velcro, and Bobby knew that Jammer had the squat little automatic weapon he'd seen there earlier in the day. He looked around, but Jackie was nowhere in sight. A third screw ticked explosively on the formica of the tabletop. Bobby hesitated, confused, but then followed Jackie's example and got out of sight, moving as quietly as he could. He crouched behind one of the club's wooden screens and watched as the fourth screw came down, followed by a slender cascade of fine dark dust. There was a scraping sound, and then a square steel ceiling grate vanished abruptly, withdrawn into some kind of duct. He glanced quickly to the bar, in time to see the fat recoil compensator on the barrel of Jammer's gun as it swung up. A pair of thin brown legs dangled from the opening now, and a gray sharkskin hem smudged with dust.
"Hold it!"
Bobby said.
"It's Beauvoir!" "You bet it's Beauvoir,"
came the voice from above, big and hollow with the echo of the duct.
"Get that damn table out of the way."
Bobby scrambled out from behind the screen and hauled the table and chairs to the side.
"Catch this,"
Beauvoir said, and dangled a bulging olive-drab pack from one of its shoulder straps, then let it go. The weight of the thing nearly took Bobby to the floor.
"Now get out of my way."
Beauvoir swung down out of the duct, hung from the opening's edge with both hands, then dropped.
"What happened to the screamer I had up there?"
Jammer asked, standing up behind the bar, the little machine gun in his hands.
"Right here,"
Beauvoir said, tossing a dull gray bar of phenolic resin to the carpet. It was wrapped with a length of fine black wire. No other way I could get in here without a regular army of shitballs knowing about it as it happens. Somebody has obviously given them the blueprints to the place, but they've missed that one. How'd you get up to the roof? Jackie asked, stepping from behind a screen.
"I didn't,"
Beauvoir said, pushing his big plastic frames back up his nose.
"I shot a line of monomall across from the stack next door, then slid over on a ceramic spindle."
His short nappy hair was full of furnace dust. He looked at her gravely.
"You know,"
he said.
Yes. Legba and Papa Ugu in the Matrix. I jacked with Bobby on Jammer's deck.
They blew Ahmed away on the Jersey freeway. Probably with the same launcher they did Bobby's old lady with.
Who?
Still not sure.
Beauvoir said, kneeling beside the pack and clicking open the quick-release plastic fasteners.
But it's starting to shape up. What I was working on, up until I heard Lucas had been hit, was running down the Lobes who mugged Bobby for his deck. That was probably an accident, just business as usual, but somewhere there's a couple of Lobes with our icebreaker. That had potential for sure, because the Lobes are hot doggers, some of them, and they do a little business with Two-A-Day. So Two-A-Day and I were making the rounds, looking to learn what we could, which was Dick, as it turned out. Except that while we were with this dust case called Alex, who's second assistant warlord or something, he gets a call from his opposite number, who Two-A-Day pins as a Barrytown Gothic name of Raymond. He was unloading the pack as he spoke, laying out weapons, tools, ammunition, coils of wire. Raymond wants to talk real bad, but Alex is too cool to do it in front of us. Sorry, gentlemen, but this is official warlord business, this dumb shit says. So natch, we excuse our humble selves, shuffle and bow and all, and nip around the corner. Use Two-A-Day's modular phone to ring up our cowboys back in the sprawl and put them onto Alex's phone, but fast. Those cowboys went into Alex's conversation with Raymond like a wire into cheese. He pulled a deformed 12-gauge shotgun, barely longer than his forearm, from the pack, selected a fat drum magazine from the display he'd made on the carpet, and clicked the two together. You ever see one of these motherfuckers? South African pre-war. Something in his voice and the set of his jaw made Bobby suddenly aware of his contained fury. Seems Raymond has been approached by this guy, and this guy has lots of money, and he wants to hire the Gothics outright, the whole apparat, to go into the sprawl and do a number, a real crowd scene. This guy wants it so big, he's gonna hire the casuals too. Well, the shit hit the fan then, because Alex, he's kinda conservative. Only good casuals a dead one, and then only after X number of hours of torture, etc. Fuck that, Raymond says, ever the diplomat. We're talking big money here. We're talking corporate. He opened a box of fat red plastic shells and began to load the gun, cranking one after another into the magazine. Now, I could be way off, but I keep seeing these Moss Biolabs PR types on video lately. Something very weird's happened out on some property of theirs in Arizona. Some people say it was a nuke. Some people say it was something else. And now they're claiming their top Biosoft man's dead in what they call an unrelated accident. That's Mitchell, the guy who more or less invented the stuff. So far, nobody else is even pretending to be able to make a biochip. So Lucas and I assumed from the beginning that Moss had made that icebreaker, if it was an icebreaker. But we had no idea who the Finn got it from or where they got it. But if you put all that together, it looks like Moss Biolabs might be out to cook us all. And this is where they plan to do it, because they got us here but good. I don't know, Jammer said. We got a lot of friends in this building. Had. Beauvoir put the shotgun down and started loading a Nambu automatic. Most of the people on this level and the next one down got bought out this afternoon. Cash. Duffels full of it. There's a few holdouts, but not enough.
That doesn't make any sense, Jackie said, taking the glass of scotch from Jammer's hand and drinking it straight off. What do we have that anybody could want that bad?
Hey, Bobby said, don't forget. They probably don't know those Lobes ripped me for the icebreaker. Maybe that's all they want.
No, Beauvoir said, snapping the magazine into the Nambu. Because they couldn't have known you hadn't stashed it in your mother's place, right? But maybe they went there and looked. So how do they know Lucas wasn't carrying it in Ahmed? Jammer said, walking back to the bar.
Finn thought someone sent those 3 ninjas to kill him too, Bobby said. Said they had stuff to make him answer questions first, though.
Moss again.
Beauvoir said. However, here's the deal with the casuals and Gothics. We'd know more, but Alex the Lobe got on his high horse and wouldn't parley with Raymond. No co-employment with the hated casuals. Near as our cowboys could make out, the army's outside to keep you people in, and to keep people like me out. People with guns and stuff. He handed the loaded Nambo to Jackie. You know how to use a gun? He asked Bobby. Sure. Bobby lied. No, Jammer said. We got enough trouble without arming him, Jesus Christ. What all that suggests to me, Beauvoir said, is that we can expect somebody else to come in after us. Somebody a little more professional. Unless they just blow Hypermart all to shit and gone, Jammer said. And all those zombies with it. No, Bobby said. Or else they'd already have done it. They all stared at him. Give the boy credit, Jackie said. He's got it right. 30 minutes later, and Jammer was staring glumly at Beauvoir. I gotta hand it to you. That's the most half-assed plan I've heard in a long time. Yeah, Beauvoir, Bobby cut in. Why can't we just crawl back up that vent, sneak across the roof, and get over to the next building? Use the line you came over on. There's casuals on the roof like flies on shit, Beauvoir said. Some of them might even have brain enough to have found the cap I opened to get down here. I left a couple of baby frag mines on my way in. He grinned mirthlessly. Aside from that, the building next door is taller. I had to go up on that roof and shoot the monomole down to this one. You can't hand over hand up monomolecular filament. Your fingers fall off. Then how the hell did you expect to get out? Bobby said. Drop it, Bobby, Jackie said quietly. Beauvoir's done what he had to do. Now he's in here with us and we're armed. Bobby, Beauvoir said, why don't you run the plan back to us? Make sure we understand it. Bobby had the uncomfortable feeling that Beauvoir wanted to make sure he understood it. But he leaned back against the bar and began. We get ourselves all armed up and we wait, okay? Jammer and we go out with his deck and scout around the Matrix. Maybe we get some idea what's happening. I think I can handle that by myself, Jammer said. Shit! Bobby was off the bar. Beauvoir said, I want to go. I want to jack. How am I ever supposed to learn anything? Never mind, Bobby, Jackie said. You go on. Okay, Bobby said sulkily. So, sooner or later, the guys who hired the Gothics and casuals to keep us here, they're gonna come for us. When they do, we take them. We get at least one of them alive. Same time, we're on our way out, and the Goths and all, they won't expect all the firepower, so we get to the street and head for the projects. I think that about covers it, Jammer said, strolling across the carpet to the locked-in curtain door. I think that about sums it up. He pressed his thumb against a coated latch plate and pulled the door half open. Hey, you, he bellowed. Not you. You with the hat. Get your ass over here. I want to talk. The pencil-thick red beam pierced door and curtain, two of Jammer's fingers, and winked over the bar. A bottle exploded, its contents billowing out as steam and vaporized esters. Jammer let the door swing shut again, stared at his ruined hand, then sat down hard on the carpet. The club slowly filled with the Christmas tree smell of boiled gin. Beauvoir took a silver pressure bottle from the bar counter and hosed the smoldering curtain with seltzer, until the CO2 cartridge was exhausted and the stream faltered. "You're in luck, Bobby," Beauvoir said, tossing the bottle over his shoulder. "'Cause Brother Jammer, he ain't gonna be punching any deck." Jackie was making clucking sounds over Jammer's hand, kneeling down. Bobby caught a glimpse of cauterized flesh, then quickly looked away. Chapter 26. The Wig. "You know," Rez said, hanging upside down in front of Marley, "it's strictly no biz of mine, but is somebody maybe expecting you when we get there? I mean, I'm taking you there for sure, and if you can't get in, I'll take you back to Jalterm. But if nobody wants to let you in, I don't know how long I want to hang around. That thing's scrap, and we get some funny people hanging out in the hulks out here." Rez, or Therese, Marley gathered from the laminated pilot's license clipped to the Sweet Jane's console, had removed her canvas work vest for the trip. Marley, numb with the rainbow of derms Rez had pasted along her wrist to counteract the convulsive nausea of space adaptation syndrome, stared at the rose tattoo. It had been executed in a Japanese style hundreds of years old, and Marley woozily decided that she liked it. That, in fact, she liked Rez, who was at once hard and girlish and concerned for her strange passenger. Rez had admired her leather jacket and purse before bundling them into a kind of narrow nylon net hammock, already stuffed with cassettes, print books, and unwashed clothing. "I don't know," Marley managed. "I'll just have to try to get in. You know what that thing is, sister?" Rez was adjusting the G-web around Marley's shoulders and armpits. "What thing?" Marley blinked. "Where we're going. It's part of the old Tessier Ashpool chorus. Used to be the mainframes for their corporate memory." "I've heard of them," Marley said, closing her eyes. "Andrea told me." "Sure, everybody's heard of them. They used to own all of Freeside. Built it, even. Then they went tits up and sold out. Had their family place cut off the spindle and towed to another orbit. But they had the cores wiped before they did that, and torched them off and sold them to a scrapper. The scrappers never done anything with them. I never heard anybody was squatting there. But out here, you live where you can. I guess that's true for anybody. Like they say that Lady Jane, old Ashpool's daughter, she's still living in their old place. Stone crazy." She gave the G-web a last professional tug. "Okay. You just relax. I'm gonna burn Jane hard for 20 minutes, but it'll get us there fast, which I figure is what you're paying for." And Marley slid back into a landscape built all of boxes. Vast wooden Cornell constructions where the solid residues of love and memory were displayed behind rain-streaked sheets of dusty glass. And the figure of the mysterious boxmaker fled before her, down avenues paved with mosaics of human teeth. Marley's Paris boots clicking blindly over symbols outlined in dull gold crowns. The boxmaker was male and wore Alan's green jacket, and feared her above all things. "I'm sorry," she cried, running after him. "I'm sorry." "Yeah,
Therese Lawrence, the Sweet Jane. You want the numbers? What? Yeah, sure, we're pirates. I'm Captain fucking Hook already. Look, Jack, let me give you the numbers, you can check it out. I said already. I got a passenger. Request permission at goddamn cetera. Marley something speaks French in her sleep.
Marley's lids flickered, opened. Rez was webbed in front of her, each small muscle of her back precisely defined.
Hey,
Rez said, twisting around in the web.
I'm sorry. I raised them for you, but they sound pretty flaky. You religious?
No, Marley said, baffled. Rez made a face.
Well, I hope you can make sense out of this shit then.
She shrugged out of the web and executed a tight backward somersault that brought her within centimeters of Marley's face. An optic ribbon trailed from her hand to the console. And, for the first time, Marley saw the delicate sky-blue socket set flush with the skin of the girl's wrist. She popped a speaker bead into Marley's right ear and adjusted the transparent microphone tube that curved down from it.
You have no right to disturb us here,
a man's voice said.
Our work is the work of God, and we alone have seen his true face.